many, many times. In that world, it becomes essential for individuals to commit themselves to learning throughout their lives. It's been estimated that perhaps 20% of your time will be spent in formal learning activities. And it's also critical for institutions, whether they be employers or governments, commit to providing those opportunities. If you go to Google and type in lifelong learning, you'll find there are about 24 countries around the world today that have, at least through public policy, made just such a commitment. They don't know how they're going to do it yet, but they understand the importance of it. So that's where the globalization comes in. Think for a moment what this means. It means that during your life, most of the students enrolled in college programs will be adults. They will not be young. They won't give a damn about whether you have a fancy campus or fraternities or sororities or a winning football team. Well, they may care about a winning football team, but not about most other things. They will have jobs and careers and families, and therefore you'll have to take education to them rather than expecting them to pick up, leave their family and their job behind and come to you. It's going to be hard for them, for students to be supported by their parents, because their parents and their grandparents will be in school. So you need some different way to finance it, probably something like Social Security. But the key will be a change in the culture to regard access to lifelong learning opportunities as essentially a civil right for all Americans in a democratic society and a global knowledge economy. That's a game changer. Another game changer. One of the surprising things that's bubbled out of all of this technology over the last several years is what's called the open education resources movement. Now, you're probably all familiar with open source software development, Linux, things like that, where collections of people get together, develop software, give it away for free, provided the people that use it feedback what they've learned from it, and so forth. Well, this philosophy is now opening up opportunities for learning and for scholarship to the world by putting previously restricted knowledge into the public domain, and then inviting others to join in its use and development. Think Wikipedia, think Google, or more to the point, think of MIT's Open Courseware initiative. About 4 years ago, one of my friends, Chuck Vest, who was president of MIT, called me up in the middle of the night and said, tomorrow we're going to have a press conference where we're going to announce that all the digital assets for MIT's courses will be put into the public domain on the web. And then he asked, am I crazy? Should I cancel that press conference? And I said, well, it's your institution. Let's see what happens. Well, this September, they completed the last stage of putting all 1,800 of their courses, the digital assets, onto the web. Open access. In some cases, it's rather rudimentary. It's notes, it's syllabi, problem sets, and so forth. In other cases, it's video stream lectures, much more sophisticated. Last year, over 3 million students, faculty, and others around the world utilized those assets. Today, over 150 other universities are adopting the Open Courseware initiative. And in fact, my university is about to announce that we're putting our entire medical curriculum, the MD curriculum, into the public domain through open course software. The British Open University, I mentioned OU for free, they're putting many of their courses, again, into the public domain with the open courseware paradigm. Now, they're not giving credit for that, just like MIT is not giving credit for people to access their website. But if you want to study on your own, or if you're taking a lousy thermodynamics course and you think that perhaps an MIT course might help you understand stuff better, you can go to that site. Yale has just put online its video streaming of its 12 most popular courses. We're waiting for the first Michigan history students to walk into their history professor and say, you're wrong, Professor such and such at Yale, the clear leader in this field, has a much better course than yours. Why don't you use it? Well, you know, bringing the market into the classroom. In fact, there are open source middleware projects. We have one at Michigan called Sakai that are retooling themselves to dramatically reduce the cost of putting material into the OpenCourseware initiative, and so that will grow very fast. Another example, just as exciting but somewhat more controversial, is the Google Print Library project, in which a number of leading universities have joined together with Google to digitize a substantial part of their library collections. Michigan was the first to do this. We announced in December of 2004 that we would allow Google to digitize our entire 8 million volume library. Part of the reason, of course, is that Larry Page, CEO of Google, or founder of Google, was a Michigan undergraduate in engineering during the 1990s, and while he was there, he worked on our digital library project. Well, we didn't think they could do it. We said, well, fine, it'll cost you $1 billion. Probably you'll have to invest in it. You still won't get it done. But try. Last week I came back from a trip and noticed all through my buildings were various flyers pasted everywhere. My building has a 1.5 million volume library in it for our engineering, transportation, architecture, art, and music programs. The flyer said, stay away from the loading dock and the freight elevators because Google will be here for the next 3 months digitizing the collection. Now, think about it for a second. 3 months to digitize 1.5 million volumes, okay? That's 100,000 volumes a week. It's now estimated they will complete the 8 million volume library of the University of Michigan in about 2 years, and by the year 2010. What's that get people? Well, as they bring that digitized material online, which they are now doing in real time, anybody in the world has full text search access to it. If it's under copyright, all you can do is get references to what they call snippets. They'll point you to where it exists in the book in 3 different places. If that's right, if that's what you want, they'll then take you to a transaction where you can get the book on a library loan, you can buy it from the publisher. There might be a microtransaction where you could get that page or that chapter. If it's no longer under copyright, the University of Michigan will let you have it in PDF form immediately. Just download it. And if you want to carry it around with you, we're putting in printers that will print off a single copy at a time for rather inexpensively. Now multiply that by 25. There are 25 major academic libraries around the world, including Stanford, Harvard, Oxford, New York Public Library, libraries in Europe and Asia. Their combined collections are estimated to represent about 60% of the books in the world today in about 400 languages. All of those libraries have contracts with Google to digitize substantial portions. Not all, but most. In fact, the entire Big Ten, plus the University of Chicago, which is in it, we count them in academically, although not with football, has agreed to be a part of this. So, in a generation, I'd bet you within a decade, you will have a substantial fraction of the printed material in the world that will be available for full text searches, and the only question is, how much can you get access to? One of my colleagues, I mentioned him earlier, Chuck Vess, suggests that OpenCourseware, open source middleware, the open philosophy in which education, knowledge is something people have universal access to, the Google project, is really the scaffolding for what he calls the meta-university. As he puts it, a transcendent, accessible, empowering, dynamic, communally constructed framework of open materials and platforms on which much of the higher education worldwide can be constructed and enhanced. I mentioned earlier that to meet the exploding demand for higher education would require building a new campus every week. You can't do it, but perhaps you could build meta-universities, because after all, the knowledge will be there, the learning tools will be there. So that takes me to the last topic. What might happen if you pulled all these pieces together? Yesterday, Necropani announced that the $100 laptop project would allow anybody to purchase one of their laptops as a Christmas gift. They haven't got the price down to 100 yet, but it's at 200. You can purchase one provided you actually buy two, and one of them will go to a child in Africa, and you'll get one of them that you can give to your 5-year-old or whatever. Linux-based, very powerful, wireless, almost indestructible. Well, the reality is that whether it's the $100 laptop, whether it's the iPhone, whether it's a fourth generation cell phone, billions of people around the world will have connectivity. Already it's estimated at about 1.5 billion, and that number is going up very fast. They'll have connectivity to interact with each other, interact with markets, and to interact with OpenCourseWare and with Google or other massive digitization activities. That is,